One of the most popular alternative theories explaining the origin of ancient megalithic structures is the theory of paleocontact. It implies that at a certain point of time in the past, the Earth was visited by representatives of a highly developed extraterrestrial civilization, and that they were the authors and even the builders of the most advanced ancient megalithic structures. Moreover, it was the representatives of this advanced civilization that were revered by the ancients as the gods. These gods were also considered by them as the founders of our civilization as such. But at the same time, there is a big problem. How did this advanced civilization disappear, and why? In order to better understand this problem, it is worth looking into the relatively recent events of our modern history, namely into the year 1952. The year of one significant and extremely secret event in the United States that was in some way connected to the topic of paleocontact and communications between humanity and extraterrestrial intelligence. It was the year of birth of a very special service called the NSA, or the National Security Agency. It was James Bamford who first wrote about this very long-hidden part of the story of the NSA in his famous investigative book, The Puzzle Palace, in the early 80s. The book begins with the fact that on November 4th, 1952, the day of the election of the new President of the United States, Secretary of Defense R. Leavitt signed a special directive on the creation of a new super-secret intelligence service. Later, on October 24th, 1952, U.S. President Harry Truman signed a special 7-page presidential memorandum. Branded top secret and stamped with a code word that was itself secret, the document ordered the establishment of an agency that would become known as the NSA. The document became the birth certificate of the newest and most secret agency in the United States, so secret that in fact only a few people in the government were allowed to know about its existence. 2 months after that, as one of his last acts as president, Truman quietly signed NSCID No. 9, a new version of the National Security Council's intelligence directive, rewritten in accordance with the recommendations for the creation of the NSA. 30 years later, Mr. Truman's memo is still one of Washington's most closely guarded secrets. In the 70s, when the existence of the NSA was no longer a secret, access to this important document could not be obtained either by the public through the courts or at the request of the Congressional Commission overseeing intelligence activities. Only in the mid-2000s, from the NSA's own documents, it became known that even the very fact of the existence of the mysterious Truman Memorandum was long hidden from the agency's employees themselves. This happened thanks to the declassified article, The Early History of the NSA, written in 1974 by the official historian of the agency, George Howe, for one of the secret internal collections. And in order to make it clear why all this bureaucratic fuss with different directives and their dates has relation to communication with extraterrestrial intelligence, it is necessary to recall one historical nuance: the creation of a powerful, centralized, and super-secret intelligence service, which united all the previously disparate military units engaged in deciphering and code-breaking, took place 5 years after the famous story of the UFO crash near Roswell, New Mexico.
And what you have to think about is what happened when we first discovered that, and what did we do about it? And there's no, you got to look at 47 in a very peculiar way. 90 days after the Roswell event, CIA was created, the Air Force was separated from the Army, the National Security Act was created, and all those things are mechanisms to start learning more and to start getting private industry off the ground.
According to known facts, including military evidence, objects covered with writing signs were also found at the crash site among the remains of Roswell's UFO. Some indirect evidence suggests that in the genuine Truman's Memorandum of 1952, among the tasks of the NSA was mentioned the activity of decrypting materials of extraterrestrial origin as well. And we can only speculate now if this is the reason why the top secrecy of this document stays up to this moment. Unfortunately, it is not yet possible to support with documents these assumptions. But when in the 90s, due to the collapse of the USSR and the dramatically changed political climate, the NSA still had to respond to the demands for declassification of the Truman's Memorandum. Something rather odd was presented to the public instead. The presented document is almost word by word repeating the previously declassified NSCID Directive Number 9, and on the same 8, not 7, as per Truman's memo pages. Moreover, for some odd reason, the scans that were declassified for open publication are not from the originals of these documents, but from their copies that do not have the signatures of President Truman. The funny thing is that the very terrible state secret, which both twin documents hid in themselves, is just the NSA's functions for systematic intelligence of communication means of foreign states. And these things are formulated in the most generic and obvious terms. In other words, the reasons for the most active struggle for the secrecy of the document and attempts to conceal even the very fact of its existence remained completely incomprehensible to the general public. Meanwhile, along with the process of declassifying all sorts of old collections and magazines from the secret inner life of the NSA, it became quite obvious that the spy service was really interested in the problems of communication with alien intelligence. They didn't even make a big secret out of this, especially in the initial period of its history. So, in particular in 2008, a selection of declassified articles from the internal collection of the Special Service appeared on the agency's website under the title NSA Technical Journal. Half a dozen materials of this kind are particularly interesting for our story. The article from 1966 is of the greatest interest. For its author, the Greek-born mathematician and musician Lambros D. Kallimachos was once known as one of the NSA's leading cryptologists. The contents of this article were reported at a panel discussion in the section entitled Communications with Extraterrestrial Intelligence at the Conference on Military Electronics held in Washington in September 1965. The discussion was moderated by Dr. Harold Worcester, Director of Information Services at the U.S. Air Force Office of Scientific Research. The speech of the respected cryptologist from NSA begins with these words: "We are not alone in the universe. Some time ago, this idea seemed far-fetched. Today, the existence of extraterrestrial intelligence is perceived by most scientists as a proven fact." Of course, the speaker does not disclose any big state secrets in this regard. However, the very fact of an absolutely serious discussion of this topic with such an interesting composition of participants is quite remarkable by itself. The collapse of the NSA's interests in communicating with extraterrestrial intelligence in the late 60s coincided with the closure of a similar project, the Blue Book in the U.S. Air Force, which was engaged in collecting and studying evidence of UFOs. Officially, it is considered that the interest of the authorities in the phenomenon, as it were, ended. However, the story unfolded here in such a way that in 2017, the facts of the presence of supreme flying systems of some advanced non-human life form in our sky were leaked and first published in the New York Times and later officially confirmed and declassified by the Pentagon. Along with some documents that in fact the UFO topic has been in continuous development by the intelligence and military community till present times. The interest of the three letters agencies in such a type of arcane subject has not disappeared. All such works were simply transferred to the much deeper depths of state secrets. Because the fact that unknown craft are flying around Earth is not a subject for science, it is a subject for intelligence gathering, collection, and analysis. It's the domain of military science. Available to date facts of the so-called unidentified aerial phenomena reveals its technical complexity and clearly represents a technology that is far superior than we ever had or have.
There's some rock solid evidence in cases regarding vehicles, not just plasma or lights in the night sky, but actually discernible, detectable vehicles that are intelligently controlled and maneuvering. Some patterns begin to emerge. One of the strongest, as you suggested, is the the activity around nuclear development and nuclear weapons sites. And that often involves very close sort of encounters that are violating restricted airspace. And so that makes them especially concerning and especially notable. This is real, this is happening, and it's extremely important. It has profound potential national security and scientific ramifications.
Maybe it's time to realize that a phenomenon is not something that started happening just recently. Or let's put it this way. According to legends and stories from the past, humanity had a long record of contacts with non-human forms of technologically advanced civilization presented on our planet since time immemorial. Maybe we asked the wrong questions. Could the term extraterrestrial in relation to the phenomenon be wrong and misleading? Because according to the available data, an advanced non-human civilization that ancients referred to as the gods has actually never gone anywhere from our planet, and seems like it has permanent access to our world.
Dude, that is a fucking drone, bro. There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude. That's not our LNS though, is it? It's not. That is the LNS, dude. Well, if there's like... Look at that thing! It's rotating.